tonight.
When they gunned him down, they killed us too. They took a big part of us.
A Regina grandmother shares her grief and anger after her 14-year-old grandson is shot dead. And if you don't pay attention to the road signs, a Saskatoon sinkhole could swallow your truck. Plus,
for many years, I was terrified.
It's been 33 years, but for Betty Urschel, the memory of being caught up in a devastating tornado still lives on.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Wednesday, July 6th. CBC Saskatchewan News starts now. Hello, and thanks for joining us. The family of a 14-year-old boy who was gunned down in Regina last week is speaking out. Jake Longman was a grade 9 student at Tom Collegiate, and as Yasmin Hernea reports, his family is struggling with the devastating loss.
He had so much to live for.
It's difficult for Jake Longman's grandmother to talk about her grandson without crying. He was shot and killed last week.
Jake was really, just really a fun-loving kid. And he just kind of tore.
The 14-year-old's body was found in this alleyway in the 1200 block of Ray Street at about 2:20 a.m. last Wednesday. 2 boys aged 15 and 17 have been charged with first-degree murder in connection with the killing. They're also facing more charges, including assault with a weapon and unauthorized possession of a firearm in a motor vehicle. They could not be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Police say an injured 32-year-old woman was also found at the scene and taken to hospital. Brenda Longman-Yeager says she doesn't know any other details around her grandson's death. She says Jake was friendly, always had a big smile, and loved jiu-jitsu and hockey. She says a part of their family died when he did.
We're still dealing with why. And we don't understand what caused those people to even do that to my grandson. Like, he was just a little child still. He was just learning to live life as a man.
His family held a vigil for him over the weekend and buried him on Monday. They hope justice is served.
I don't want my grandson's life to have ended in vain. I want the community support, whoever is willing to support us, to get justice for him.
Jake Longman's death is the 6th homicide in Regina so far this year. Yasmin Hernea, CBC News.
Sask Power and Sask Energy presented their annual general reports today. And for the province's electricity provider, the last year packed a financial blow. Sask Power saw a giant drop in their reported net income. In 2021-22, the provincial power provider had a net income of $11 million. This is a drop of $149 million from a year ago. According to the province, the culprit is the lack of water for hydropower and the need to buy more coal-powered electricity, which meant paying a pile of carbon tax.
When we were talking about Sask Energy, we talked about the carbon tax being on the bill. That's on your consumption as you as a customer. But on generating electricity, Sask Power is the customer and pays the carbon tax on it. And it's not paid on wind, solar, or hydro. But it certainly is on coal and on natural gas.
The province continues to collect money from Sask Power profits. The NDP opposition wants the government to stop and instead give customers a break from rising rates.
We still see them turning a profit, handing money back to the provincial government, while the government turns around and asks households, asks small businesses, and asks farmers for an additional 8% in power rates in the next year. Quite simply, we think this is unacceptable and that all of our Crown corporations should be doing what they can during this generational affordability crisis to make life a little bit more affordable for Saskatchewan people.
As for Sask Energy, it reported a net income of $82 million. That's an increase of $23 million from a year ago. We now know who will quarterback a trio of proposed projects in downtown Regina. Today, the city's executive committee voted to create something called the Catalyst Committee. It will make sure 3 projects, a baseball field, a replacement for the Brandt Center, and a new aquatic facility are all developed together, only if approved. The CEO of Regina Exhibition Association Limited says these projects would be catalysts toward growth, development, and private funding in the city. He'll help create the Catalyst Committee along with City Councillor Bob Hawkins.
We could have gone about this just by approaching the matter one facility at a time, arena, and then maybe a pool, and so on. But instead, we have a unique opportunity to do planning and to plan all of these facilities together so that they interact with each other and so that they activate the entire downtown of the city. What do I hope to see? I hope to see that in 20 years, we have one of the most exciting downtown cities in the country.
A final decision on where any of the potential developments would be located hasn't been made. The Catalyst Committee will present a report to Council this fall. The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, Roseanne Archibald, has survived a significant challenge to her leadership. An emergency resolution for a non-confidence vote and her dismissal has been withdrawn at the Assembly's annual meeting.
I didn't want to waste people's time debating this issue, because if it was going to be defeated soundly.
Yesterday, a resolution to suspend Archibald and investigate allegations of workplace bullying made against her was defeated. A third resolution that would reaffirm Archibald as national chief and launch a forensic audit of the AFN's finances is still pending. Archibald has been calling for the audit and for a complete restructuring of the AFN, claiming there is corruption in the organization. She says those claims have led to the campaign to have her removed. The city of Saskatoon is warning drivers to follow road signs after a transport truck drove into a water-filled sinkhole this morning. Now, this is what the scene looked like at the intersection of Miller Avenue and 60th Street. The city says the driver ignored road closed signs and got seriously stuck. The sinkhole was created yesterday when a water main broke. There were road closed signs all around the area, and the city says drivers need to follow instructions.
We can't stress enough that when people see a flooded roadway, they should not drive through. There may be quite often hazards and unsafe conditions that they cannot see, as was the case with this incident. And our barriers are there to keep everyone safe, residents and our workers, to avoid injuries and also costly damage to our property and city infrastructure.
The water outage affected several businesses in the area and the Saskatoon Correctional Centre yesterday. Today, a drinking water advisory is still in place. As for this road, it will likely take a few days before it reopens. 1 month into the CFL season, and it's all in the books, and the 3-1 Saskatchewan Roughriders took 2 of 3 performers of the month. Defensive end Pete Robertson and running back Jamal Morrow grabbed the June honors for their outstanding play. Robertson leads the CFL with 7 quarterback sacks, which is more than 4 teams' total output this season. This was bolstered by his 4 sacks against the Alouettes in their 2-game series. Jamal Morrow is the CFL's top rusher with 257 yards, while also tacking on another 363 returning yards. He is expected to get a break from special teams when newly acquired Mario Elford gets here next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen his film. I mean, the dude's a stud. You know, he's a fast guy, you know, do with will. So, you know, I'm excited for him to come in and work with him. And so, you know, I'll definitely be, super excited just to, work with him and kind of just, hey, do your thing, you know. So
he gets here. He won't be here for this game. He'll be here after the Ottawa game. We're not sure. I mean, but that's the idea, is to dress Mario and try to give J-Mo a little bit of a break.
Morrow is on pace for a 1,000-yard season, and with quarterback Cody Fajardo having mobility issues, Morrow can expect to see the ball a lot out of the backfield on Friday night against the Red Blacks. The official portrait of former Lieutenant Governor Vaughan Solomon Schofield was unveiled at the Legislative Building today. She was there to help do the honors and thanked artist Phil Richards. He spent 3.5 months painting it. The portraits are a long tradition and often contain certain personal touches. In this case, Solomon Schofield is holding a Bible that's a family heirloom, and she stands next to a family photo and a bouquet of Western red lilies. It will hang in the Legislative Building's Capel Gallery. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Now, we've had a few tornadoes touch down lately, and of course, plenty of warnings. It can be pretty scary for those who are in the path of the storm and for those who have lived through one in the past. 33 years ago, Betty Urschel was driving through Cutknife with her husband and mother-in-law when their car was picked up by a tornado. She shares with us how that experience haunted her for years.
The National with Ian Hannamansing.
Good evening. People near Cutknife, Saskatchewan are still in a state of shock. Last night, severe tornadoes ripped through their community. The storm also carried heavy rains and hail, and it caused extensive damage. At least 8 people were taken to a hospital.
We weren't that far out of Cutknife when all of a sudden that storm was upon us. And when you normally see a tornado, you see that tornado coming. We never saw that. All we saw was a black wall of miles of dust. So we had no idea that it was a tornado.
The storm hit in the early evening. Many of the homes are now gone. Their contents lie nearby. Nothing more than piles of rubble.
My husband said, "Here we go." And the car picked up and rolled. At some point, I could feel wet grass on my arm. And we landed up on the other side of the fence, upside down.
A 2-month-old baby landed here after being thrown 15 meters by a tornado. He and his mother were sucked from their house. Only the foundations remain. The grandmother says both are in hospital. The child has serious head injuries.
They were able to help us get back to Cutknife, to the hospital to get checked out. My mother-in-law had a dislocated thumb. I had a big goose egg on the back of my head and a cut on my hand, and there was no power at the hospital, and the doctor was running around in the dark and broke his toe because he couldn't see where he was going.
On this farm, the granaries are battered and toppled. The barn roof is torn off. A long piece of steel is lodged in the wall of the house. High winds rammed it through. In the town of Cutknife, homes are damaged. Trees litter most of the yards and streets.
It just is one of those things that never really goes away. But for many years, I was terrified. It did cause some panic attacks when we were caught in storms on the highway in years to come. I had started a fairly new job. I hadn't been there very long, and we had moved into a new office, and somebody came in and said that there was a tornado warning. And so I instantly froze, went outside, assessed the sky, decided I could make it home to my basement because there was no basement at this workplace. And I just got in my car and left. I never said anything to anybody. I just left and went home. So then my boss happens to come back in and she's phoning me and like, is everything okay? What happened? And then I was like, oh, I never did tell you my tornado story. So
just hours apart, tornadoes touched down near Foam Lake, Manitou Beach, and Simrick.
It took many years to not instantly panic. I'm a breast cancer survivor of 6.5 years. And I think it was probably at that time when you just can't live in fear. So whether it's tornadoes or a reoccurrence or anything like that, it totally changed my mindset about things. So I'm cautious, and I might get that little intake of breath when you first hear about a tornado in the area, but I don't want to live my life in fear.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. The exclusive export event is back.
Ethan Williams is in now with a look at the weather. Now, we had some tornadoes yesterday in the province, Of course, thankfully, they weren't as strong as the ones we saw in that last story, which was incredible.
Yeah, that's right, Dan. And thank goodness, because no injuries or damage reported from storms this time around. But we did have 2 tornadoes confirmed yesterday in west central Saskatchewan. This was the first one that touched down near Madison. That's just southeast of Kindersley. Touched down around 5:25 in the afternoon. Dawn captured this video of it as it crossed a field. And then about 10 minutes later, another twister crossed a field near Smiley, just northwest of Kindersley. There it is there. It lifted just after a few minutes. And both tornadoes have been given a preliminary rating of EF0. That's the lowest possible rating. But if you do have any photos and videos of the twisters or any damage they might have caused, you are asked to send them to Environment Canada. And the storms continued into this morning as well. We had a storm out near Yorkton this morning, actually moved right through. It was a severe thunderstorm producing up to pea-sized hail. Warren grabbing this shot. He's going to need to use the wiper blades a little bit after that. And we do have storms on the radar right now. A plethora of storms popping up in northeastern Montana, and they are starting to move their way northward. And we do have a severe thunderstorm warning now for 2 cells. This first one is moving toward Climax and Bracken. Both of these storms are moving roughly to the north and east. This one producing up to nickel-sized hail. And this one is a little more powerful right in the southwest corner of the province, heading northeastward toward Consol and Robsart, and it is producing up to golf ball-sized hail. Very strong winds and very heavy rain likely in both of these storms as well. And there are severe thunderstorm watches in addition to the warnings right now. Assiniboia, Gravelbourg, Maple Creek, Cypress Hills over toward the Weyburn-Estevan area. We could see storms become nocturnal, and they will continue to be severe through the night tonight. And this is a look at tomorrow's thunderstorm outlook. Again, the most severe of the weather kind of in the same area that we're going to be seeing it tonight. Estevan over toward Val-Marie toward the southwest corner, up towards Swift Current, and then a general non-severe risk for Regina and Yorkton. This is the risk looking overnight tonight, and generally south of the Trans-Canada Highway, but pretty much east to west from the Manitoba border over to the Alberta border is where we're going to be seeing those storms. Temperatures right now across the province quite warm in the south, in the mid-20s, a little cooler as you work your way to the central region of the province where we're only around the 20-degree mark. Some of us not even cracking 20 at this hour. And as I mentioned, storms possible overnight. Then we see this band of rain move in, and Regina and portions of southern Saskatchewan will likely get a soaking mid-morning tomorrow morning. Thunderstorms are possible in there as well. And we get to tomorrow afternoon and it changes over to widespread showers. And then Friday comes along and we'll probably see more just a chance of rain than a risk of any severe storms, but it is widespread again. Much of the province likely going to be seeing a drink on Friday. This is looking through tomorrow through the day, and keep in mind that these amounts, especially in Swift Current, might be a little heavier just because of they're factoring in thunderstorms, but not ruling out, 10, maybe 15 millimeters in portions of the southern part of the province, including Regina and Estevan as part of this system that is moving in. And it is a soggy next 7 days in Regina. Again, showers and storms, especially in the morning tomorrow. For the Rider game, yes, you will need to bring some rain gear. Looks like it's going to be a nice day temperature-wise, but again, showers possible through the day. Saturday, Sunday, we will look for another risk of storms, and some of those could become severe, but 3 nice days next week, which looks like we will get some sunshine finally after a long stretch. Saskatoon, it's mostly just showers tomorrow instead of thunderstorms. A nice warm up as we head into the end of the weekend. And showers again, Dan, possible for the beginning of next week. And it looks like that rainy period just won't give up on us.
It sure seems like the extreme weather avoids Saskatoon and Regina. Other than that 100 millimeters that fell in some parts of Saskatoon, it just seems to avoid us.
Yeah, it's like we've got a special dome around us or something. It works very well.
Like a storm shadow, but yeah. that's more the Victoria thing. That's why Victoria doesn't get all the rain.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so probably a good thing.
That's true.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Now, if you've got the space and probably more importantly the cash, you can be the proud owner of this dinosaur skeleton. It's a Gorgosaurus, a slightly smaller relative of the T-Rex, and it lived around 77 million years ago. The skeleton was found in the sediment of a river in Montana in 2018. The auction house handling the sale says it can be sold because it was found in the United States. Estimated price, $5 to $8 million US. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Patrick Brown is lashing out at the Conservative Party over its decision to disqualify him from the federal leadership race. He says party officials are trying to improve Pierre Poilievre's chance of becoming leader. Brown's camp says the decision is an indictment of the party and indicates its officials are, quote, not serious about winning a general election.
The party of John A. Macdonald should have a fair leadership election, and it shouldn't be a small group late at night in Ottawa at the behest of another campaign disqualifying their leading adversary.
The party's leadership organization committee voted to disqualify Brown last night. They say he breached federal financing regulations, but they haven't provided details. Poilievre's camp insists that only Brown and the committee know exactly what caused the disqualification. Brown says his campaign has signed up about 150,000 supporters during the race. Now that pandemic restrictions have been relaxed, people are starting to travel again. That's caused chaos at many airports. But as Adil Musa reports, the problem is worse in this country than in most.
In Canada's busiest airport, more disruptions, delays, and a whole lot of displeasure.
I was supposed to come in last night, but my flight last night was canceled, so I had to go back home and then get the earliest flight I could this morning.
Being a regular traveler, we understand sometimes this can happen, but this is absolutely a ridiculous situation to be in for so many people.
Summer demand coupled with staffing shortages has created a perfect storm that's rippled across the country.
What's happened is airlines no longer have the opportunity to reset themselves. Normally what they would do after a thunderstorm, for example, is they would take the day after things get better at the airport and the weather has passed to reset themselves. Right now, they've been facing 94 straight days of really thunderstorms at Canada's airports.
It's been a particularly bad month for passengers on Air Canada and WestJet flights. They recorded the most delays among North America's biggest airlines. But according to one expert, U.S. carriers experienced some of the same issues last year, and it's now Canada's turn.
When pilots are in great demand, when crew are also in great demand. And what that means is that if there's a minor disruption on a schedule that's very finely balanced, it can tip in the favor of total chaos.
We asked Air Canada and WestJet what they're doing to address delays. Air Canada says it's cutting flights and has purchased additional ground equipment. WestJet is also reducing flights this summer and has hired more than 1,000 people. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Ethan's back with one last look at the weather. Ethan, how's it looking?
Not too bad at midnight in Regina, Dan. We're at 17 degrees, mostly clear conditions. To our south, likely some storms. Some could be severe. Northeast winds will be gusting around 30 kilometers an hour. Rain starts to build in by the time we get to tomorrow morning. We'll be at 17 degrees. Winds don't go anywhere, but keep in mind as we head through the morning hours that heavier rain and some thunderstorms could build in. Saskatoon, 15 and mainly clear at midnight tonight. You will see cloud cover build in tomorrow. Likely no showers by the time we get to 8 a.m. Those come a little bit later, 17 degrees, and mainly clear conditions means you might be able to see the aurora tonight, a moderate to high KP index, but you'll have to be a night owl. The peak is between 1:30 and 3 a.m., Dan, and you may just run into some showers, of course, and thunderstorms if you're in the south.
And if you see them, send pictures.
Yes, send them our way. saskphotos@cbc.ca.
Awesome. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that's it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/Sask or Saskatoon. Or, of course, subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel if you missed the first part of the show, and any of the CBC social media net channels as well. Glenn Reed will be back with more local news at 11. Good night, everybody.